Hey, listen, Red Clay parents, or just parents in general, right? When you have a person that's on a school board, you have to understand that these are volunteer positions, right? Now, I take a different approach, and not let me not say different. I believe that I have a philosophy about leading and about public service that is unique, right? Not better, worse. It's just unique to me, right? And I believe that we should spend a lion's share of our time trying to reach out to our communities, our respective communities, and try to get the information to them in a way that's easily understood by them, um, so that they can meaningfully participate in the education process for their kids, right? And even the community and outside stakeholders. I think that we should make an effort to do it. But it becomes complicated because school board members are not, it's not a paid position, it's not a full-time position. And so sometimes you are at the mercy of the school district and the information that they're feeding you, because they're the paid staff members that are responsible for coordinating all of these things and organizing all these things. Now, to some extent, you have a board president and vice president that leads in that process for the board, so that they try to make sure that we're informed. But again, we're still at the mercy of the information that's coming from the school district. So my approach was to make sure that I'm informing families, that I'm probing and reaching out to families so I can understand what their voice is. And so it's reflected in any policy initiative that we implement in the school district. And having said that, I believe that parent engagement through all districts, not just Red Clay School District, but all districts, I think it's almost like a nice to have, right? And it's an attempt, but it's not necessarily a dedicated effort to make sure that families are engaged. And sometimes I know that it can be complicated, right? Because you have different personalities, you have different people that have different schedules, you have different family styles, you have different languages, right? And what's convenient for one is inconvenient for somebody else. You have different communication methods, and so I do think that it's complicated, right? But I believe, and I'm doing this video because I introduced an idea to the school board, because I'm asking that we make a commitment as a board to allowing parent engagement to drive every initiative, every policy that we suggest. I think that parents should be integrally involved, right? Like in a very substantive, a meaningful way. And so, in summary, I said parent engagement must evolve from a series of events into a system of accountability, right? Because I think that we should hold some of the accountability. Federal law defines engagement as an intentional, equitable, and measurable partnership, not just general outreach. And that's critical because there's case law and there's federal law, federal regulation, federal research that outlines what meaningful parent engagement looks like. And a part of that parent engagement includes accountability on the part of the people that are on the affirmative side of engaging the parents. Goes on, I went on to say, um, federal law defines engagement as an intentional, equitable, and measurable partnership, not just general outreach. When families of identified students are centered in policy and practice, student outcomes improve and disparities decline. And I believe that that was significant because when you think about identified students, right? So if you have students that are under IDEA or special education and related services, it's important that anything that we do, right, any allocation of resources be laser focused and targeted on that population and those families to make sure that they're coming out and that their voices are not only heard, but that their input is giving and that they feel like they're equal partners at the table. And so if it's Title One, if it's the opportunity funds, I think that the parents that are most impacted, and especially in cases where they're adversely impacted, I believe that the families should have a voice. And I know that it's difficult. I know that it's going to be complicated, again, because of all those variables that I mentioned, right? So, but that is that's my thought process when it comes to parent engagement. And a strategic framework transforms engagement from compliance into collaboration, ensuring that every decision that the board makes is informed by those that it most affects. So what I want to try to do is transition parent engagement, events, outreach, things that the school district has been doing in the past, from looking at it as a policy to it moving into a philosophy, right? So, and the way that I believe that philosophy permeates through the school district and in every policy that we implement, every student-centered strategic instructional approach, is the way that we do that is by making sure that we have a parent engagement policy that is robust, that is comprehensive, that includes accountability, right? That includes being able to go back and reflect on what we did, how we did it, and if there's ways that we can improve that process. Was the input substantive, right? Were their voices included? And I think that that's the only way to make sure that parent engagement moves from policy, and any policy moves from policy to actual philosophy. So I'm going to introduce a series of videos just talking about each area that I intend to try to outline for the board. Hopefully they pass it and we see it the same way. But I wanted to bring it to the community because if there's any input that people want to give, I want to make sure that there's an opportunity for them to give that input, right? So the 6 core components of this parent engagement philosophy, right, is: 1, parent engagement is a governance issue, and it's not just a gesture. Family engagement is not just participation, it's policy, right? It informs nearly every domain the board oversees, and that's what I fundamentally believe. Number 2, federal law defines engagement as intentional, equitable, and measurable. Those 3 components is almost like SMART goals when it comes to an IEP, right? And I think it's important to also understand that there's also case law that outlines what parent engagement really looks like, meaningful parent participation actually looks like. And I'd like for the school district, especially us, we're Red Clay, we're the largest in the state. I believe that we can drive the narrative, we can drive the culture of school boards and school districts, making sure that they have parent engagement policies that are substantive in nature and that are effective in terms of positive student outcomes and educational impact, right? Engagement must be measured by impact, not just visibility, right? Traditional practices reward attendance at events or back to school nights. A strategic framework shifts the metric from how many showed up to did it make a difference? And that's what we're shifting to. We're shifting to a philosophical belief system change. And I know it's going to be difficult. And I know that to some, it may sound crazy, but I think that it's achievable. Authentic partnerships require centering families of identified students. We already went over that. We want to make sure that we're laser focused on pulling out the communities where we're having the most. So if we're having an academic challenge with certain student population groups, then we need to make sure that we're reaching out to those student population groups, making sure that their voices are reflected in what we're doing and how we're doing it, because there could be a small gap in understanding, right? And we want to make sure that we overcome that small impediment and we get positive educational outcomes on the other side of that impediment. And that's the focus, to be able to have this very difficult but necessary conversation, right? 5, engagement is an accountability and an equity tool. True engagement transforms compliance into collaboration. It demands that schools collect, analyze, and report engagement data disaggregated by student group, ensuring equity in who participates and whose voices shape those decisions. And we all know that it looks like every time you go to a table, it's the same voices. And it could very well be not just in the Red Clay School District. This is across the state, right? But it could very well be because these are the families that have shown a commitment to serve. But it also could be that these are the families that we communicate in their native language, right? Like, and I don't mean native language in terms of just the like English, Spanish. I'm saying in their native language in terms of communication method, right? Communication approach. Maybe we're sending emails and they familiarize themselves best with emails rather than phone calls, or a personal touch like the principal. Believing in this philosophy and making sure that everything the district is doing at the district level that could positively impact student outcomes, that they're communicating to the people that are closest in their building, and that we make sure that we engage those parents. They come to the table. We let them participate in ways that are comfortable to them and are convenient for them. And I think in that way, we improve student outcomes. And then number 6, a strategic framework creates continuous collaboration. Effective engagement is not an event. It's a cycle of planning. And this is the important part: planning, partnership, reflection, and adjustment. So it's a cycle. It's plan, partnership, reflect, adjust. Plan, partnership, reflect, adjust. So right now we're planning. We've been very good at planning. And I'm going to tell you, we got the best planners probably in the world. The challenge is that we're not partnering, right? And we're not letting our partners help with the planning, which makes the work overwhelming for the rest of us, right? And again, admittedly, I'm new to the board, right? So I haven't made a significant or an extremely substantive investment of time partnering with the district to make sure that we're doing these things. So this is going to be new for all of us, and no one person is at fault. I think that it's going to have to be a team effort. It's going to have to be a collaboration, and I think we can get it done. I think that we could actually create a national model, right? But partnership, reflection. Then we have to look at what worked from these partnerships, what didn't work, what worked from the plan, what didn't work, what worked from the outreach and recruitment efforts, and what didn't work. How can we improve it and do it better? What feedback did we get from the community, right? And then we make those adjustments based on all of the information that we received in our reflection process. So it links policy to practice, ensures families have co-governance roles. That's important, co-governance. When we're setting up a lot of these policy committees and a lot of these things that people have been working on, there's really not co-policy. They really don't have significant input in these plans, because the people are telling me that when they wanted their voices to be reflected, it was almost ignored just in general, or it was drowned out by the number of people who were on the institutional side of the committee. And so those are things that I'd like to address, right? Like, how do we construct these committees in a way that there's equity, right? And diversity, not of necessarily by race, but diversity by community, families, district, right? I don't want the district to have an overwhelming level of power and say in all the committees we're creating, because again, if we were the answer to our own problem, the federal government and case law wouldn't outline what parent engagement looks like and what it does on the opposite end of that meaningful and substantive parent engagement. And it links policy to practice, ensures families have co-governance roles, and moves districts from activity-based outreach to outcome-based partnerships. So I want everybody to please save this video, right? I want you to like this video. I want you to share this video to your friends. Make a comment on this video. And if you have any input, please give me input. Nothing, unless you're just being inflammatory and incendiary, I'm not going to accept you, because I'm going to tell you right now, I'm a little bit unhinged. So don't look at me as somebody's like, well, you're a prof. No, I'm not a professional. I'm a student advocate. I am a community organizer, and I'm a real human being at the end of the day. So don't come, because people sometimes come to me with this outlandish. Look, I can't control what I don't control, what I don't control, right? I will be accountable for the things that I do wrong. If I made a mistake, you can mention it to me. I don't mind that. Just don't try to be inflammatory, right? Thinking that I'm in a vulnerable position because I'm in elected office. Don't do that. Let's try to have a positive um, communication, and let's try to get something done for kids. Like, let's take the emphasis off of the adults, the adult personalities. Don't take this personal. This is not a shot at any individual. What it is an attempt to build a meaningful parent engagement philosophy throughout the Red Clay School District so we can operate as the model throughout the world on what parent engagement really looks like. All right. So, like, share, comment, and tag some people.